He was charging them £25,000 a go to wave them onto the planes without visas.
Here's a really remarkable story for you. A former Heathrow check-in supervisor for British Airways is on the run in India after being accused of charging passengers 25 grand to allow them onto flights without passports, without documentation. Well, let's say hi to Ben Clatworthy, Times transport correspondent. Hello, Ben.
Good afternoon.
This is the stuff of it's like a Netflix drama.
It is rather. What this 24-year-old suspect did was arrange for people who wanted to ultimately claim asylum in Canada to come from India. And what he would do was tell them to fly to the UK on a temporary visitor visa. Others were UK-based asylum claimants who were fearing that their claim was going to get rejected and they would be sent home. What he would then do is tell them to book flights to Canada when he knew he was working at Heathrow. They would then check in with him. They would have a passport, but they wouldn't have a visa to get into Canada.
So no right to get on the plane?
No right to get on the plane. The onus is with airlines to make those checks. So if you are going to the USA, for example, and you've got an ESTA, their system will check that. He was able at the airport to say, yes, I've tick a box and say I've seen a visa printed in their passports, which the system wouldn't necessarily have known was there. He would then ensure that he was going to be at the boarding gate processing passengers there. Now, that is completely normal. That is not out of the blue, that someone will do a stint on check-in on landside and then go airside and check a flight through. He said to BA bosses that it was worth him going and doing that because he was bilingual, and they have a lot of travel between India and Canada. A vast majority of people come through the UK on connecting flights. Sometimes up to 200 passengers could have come off flights from India on. So he said it was very important for him to be there in case people ran into difficulty. What we actually have found out he's alleged to have been doing is making sure that their seamless journey through the airport without visas was complete. When they got to Canada, the first thing they would do is go to into a border control desk and claim asylum there. He was charging them £25,000 a go to wave them onto the planes without visas.
My word, Ben. I mean, we're talking then about this is the allegation, that there was a people smuggler, in effect, in a uniform, with a desk at Heathrow Airport, checking people through in plain sight of everyone.
Absolutely. He was, as one person said to me, effectively running a covert business on the side. He used he is alleged to have used his privileged position of being someone who had the right to check people's travel documents to click the box and say yes, let them through. That then validated their boarding passes so that they could carry on. Now, he was arrested on January the 6th. He was bailed, at which point he abandoned his job and flew to India, where he is understood to have multiple homes, which he bought with potentially with the £3 million it's estimated that he has earned. There was some suggestion that he had flown to India on British Airways using his staff travel. They say that is categorically untrue. Police here are now working with Indian counterparts to try and track down both him and his partner, who worked for British Airways in a different division. They've not been named, but the UK does have an extradition treaty with India. So
even at £25,000 a pop, there must have been quite a few flights involved in this operation to get to sort of a turnover of £3 million. Do we know this? Was it just about flights from London to Canada? Were other routes involved?
Well, it was officials in Canada who initially raised the flag. Basically, they became aware of a pattern emerging of BA flights coming to Toronto and Vancouver with passengers arriving without a visa and then immediately claiming asylum. It's interesting to travel to Canada. If you are on an Indian passport, you do have to have a visa. You can't go through the ETA scheme and have a visa waiver. What will be now happening, British Airways say they are very much cooperating with the authorities, both at the Metropolitan Police and the Home Office and Border Force, but they will be going back through forensically looking at what flights he was checking in. But of course, sitting at that desk, he will process an awful lot of passengers who do have legitimate travel documents. It's just that among those were his, in inverted commas, customers who were coming along knowing full well that they didn't have the right to travel. The other thing that he's looking into is where he was advertising this service, where he was getting these customers from, and saying, if you pay me money, I will guarantee that I can get you to Canada where you can claim asylum.
Ben Clatworthy, thank you so much for bringing us that really extraordinary story, which can be read now in the Times, and well, along with an awful lot of really rather interesting stuff. I recommend it, as I frequently do.